The disappearance of Reny Jose is complex. It involves at least two conflicting points of view, neither of which give much credence to the other. Nevertheless, it's been over 2 years since Reny disappeared, and both his family and friends have little answers about where he is. Despite their disagreements about what happened to Reny, nothing changes the fact that he is still missing and that he may be in danger. Just a quick warning, this episode contains explicit language that is not censored, so if you have little ones nearby, you might want to listen to this later. March 2014. Reny Jose is a 22-year-old mechanical engineering major at Rice University in Houston, Texas. He is but a few months from graduating, and to celebrate this major accomplishment, him and an extended group of friends decide to take a road trip to Panama City, Florida for spring break. There are various accounts of how many people went on this trip, but in total there was somewhere around 20. I spoke with Reny's mother, Shirley, about her son and the events leading up to and after his disappearance. I want to start my questions with just a little bit before Reny leaves to Panama City. What was his demeanor like before he left to Panama City?
I can tell you one thing. It's like they all planned together to go to Panama City for spring break. Only thing I know is he got there and he called me and he sent me some pictures of the beach, and also on the way to Panama City, he sent me some pictures of the car while he was traveling. And when he reached there, he sent me some pictures of the backyard and the water and everything, and he said it's so cold. It was cold that time. It was March, so it was cold. And he was so happy. And his graduation is supposed to be on May 17th. So March, April, May, he couldn't wait for his graduation, and we planned to go there for his graduation too.
Did you know the friends that he was going with? Had you ever met any of them before?
Only one I met.
Only one that you had met? And how had you met this friend?
Because when we went to drop him off at first year, because we live in Albany, New York. So whenever he went there to study, so whenever he come here, we don't have any contact with any of the kids. Only one kid we saw he's the only one. He's in dental school now. He's the only one I know I saw him when we went to drop him.
Had he talked to you about any of these friends?
He doesn't say much about the friends. The friends are like friends, He doesn't say anything bad about them or good about them. Everybody's doing it. If I ask him, how is all your friends? Mom, everybody's doing good. That's all he says. So I didn't know,
For the first few days, the trip appears to be going fine. Shirley has a few communications with her son, and she feels no real worry or hesitation. Then, according to police reports, on March 3rd, around 7 p.m., Reny's friends claim that he had approached them high on LSD, claiming that he wanted to run away and hurt himself. I want to then turn to March 3rd and sort of work through what happened on those days, because I've read stuff online, but I don't know how much of it to believe or what of it is accurate. So according to reports, on March 3rd, around 7 p.m., the friends that he had rented that beach house with claimed that Reny had started acting strangely and making comments about wanting to run away and hurt himself. Does this line up with any kind of Reny you've ever experienced or witnessed in your life?
Never, ever. Because he said, Mom, I'm not a coward, to run away from life. I have to face it. This kid would do something like this or say something like that. I don't believe it.
They had also sort of made the excuse or the comment that he had been on drugs, or at least this is a
Yes,
common assumption by police even. Is this
yes.
anything that you've also ever
I
known Reni to do?
ever, never, never, I never thought he
Yeah.
would do anything like that.
And on the same note, being his mom, had you ever noticed any issues in terms of anxiety or mental health issues that might
No,
affect?
nothing at all. Nothing.
When was the last time that you spoke to Reni on the phone, like you heard him?
Oh, that's a hard question. March 2nd, 2014. He was in Panama City. He called me. Mom, I love you. You know.
And what was his demeanor like on the phone that
He
day?
was good. Good. I was happy. You know, he said, "Oh, I got 3 interviews, and I had interviews next week. And well, after when I come back from vacation, I will have interviews all the time. You know, I have to be ready." And my daughter went to his dorm room. All his like he was ready for 4 or 5 interviews. He wrote all the notes on the table and what clothes he's wearing, all those stuff. So, what do you think about that? You know?
The next morning, after their strange encounter with Reni, his friends report him missing to police. Almost immediately after they report him missing, they cleaned up their beach house, took their belongings, and left Panama City. Why is there this gap in time between when they notice him acting strangely, supposedly, and then when they report him missing to the police?
They were saying, the police was even saying that if he's an adult, within 24 hours you can wait. If he went away intentionally. But one thing I don't understand is if he said that he wanted to harm himself, and we were asking, why didn't you stay, or why didn't you call us? They are not saying a word to us. I don't know.
So
I don't know.
basically the excuse on the behalf of the police then is that he's an adult. If he goes missing voluntarily,
Right.
that's his choice. We can't do
Yes.
anything about it, even though the friends are claiming that he was in a state that might seem like he needs immediate attention.
Yes.
And I read in an article, a news article, that he had gone there with maybe like 20 some odd friends, and that the next morning, about 16 of them just leave, right? They
Yes.
don't even talk to police. They just leave.
Yes. They left. They left. And 6 of them were there. And 4 of them were his roommates. And 2 girls. We begged them. My daughter begged them at least to talk to us. And both of the girls didn't want to come out, and they went to Starbucks to buy coffee. So what does that mean?
So, did any of his friends talk to you?
The four other ones.
The 4 other
Yeah.
ones.
Yes.
So
4
6
other ones.
stayed, 2 of them were girls, and instead of talking to you that day, they went to Starbucks. And then 4 of them then remained to talk to you.
Yes.
What did they tell you?
They were saying, one was saying that he went for a walk. One was saying, I don't know, I didn't see him. And one was saying, I was sleeping. One was saying, I went out. So, I don't know. I don't know what to believe.
So the 4 people stayed with you, and they told you these varying stories. The 2 other girls went to Starbucks, and then the 16 or so others that left. Have you ever spoken to any of those that left?
I tried calling all of them. But then my lawyer some of them hired lawyers. Then we will be in trouble because harassing them. So then I stopped calling them because we will be in trouble if we call them. And they hire lawyers too.
If they have nothing to hide, why would they hire lawyers?
You tell me. You tell me why.
And you've never been able to talk to any of these 16 people?
I talked to a couple of them. Couple of them know who I was. I said, this is Shirley Joes. Then they hung up.
Do you believe that the 4 people that you were able to talk to had any involvement in Reni's disappearance?
I think they know something. They are hiding something. I tell you the truth. I think there is something happened there, but they don't want to get involved in it, so they just hiding it. They don't want to tell us what happened. I'm not saying that they did something to him, but something happened. They know it.
The day he is reported missing, March 4th, some of Reni's belongings are discovered by police. His clothes are found abandoned on the beach. His cell phone was located in a trash can behind their rented beach house, and his wallet was found inside. On March 5th, the day after Reni is reported missing to police, his parents arrive in Panama City to help search for their missing son. At this point, authorities believe, based on initial reports from his friends, that Reni, high on LSD, ran into the ocean and drowned. What did you do when you got there?
God. First thing we went to see the sheriffs, whoever was on the case. And he just brought some stuff there, and he just blindly said, Reni is in the water, There is he's in the water. Maybe you will find him. It will take maybe 1 day, 24 hours, 48 hours, then it's 64 hours, then maybe weeks, then months. Now they are saying maybe the shark ate him. He would never come back. That's what we're getting.
I also read, and I don't know again if this is true or not, so maybe you can confirm this for me, but that the local police had waited 3 days before they interviewed his friends, and that all of the interviews that they conducted with his friends were over the phone, and that there's conflicting reports about what his friends had said to police.
It's the truth.
Why did they wait 3 days to talk to his friends?
Because when we got there, we asked them, did you interview the kids? They were hiding something. They were not telling us the truth. They said, oh yeah, we did. Then we looked at the report. We said we want the report. Then we looked at the report. We got the report. Everything was after 3 days later.
If there was foul play involved, was there anything on his clothes or in his cell phone or in his wallet that you know of that would suggest that as happening?
I asked them, is there anything, did you guys do a DNA on all the clothes? And they said they did, but they couldn't find anybody else's DNA. That's what the police told me.
I see. Okay.
And one information I want to tell you is that by the time I got there, I found one of my son's pajamas on the rail, and also his two pair of his socks on the beach.
So you were able to go inside the beach house?
Yes.
And was there anything, did anything seem strange in there or out of place when you went in?
By the time, everything was cleaned up. That's what I'm thinking. Everybody was packed up and gone. By the time I got there, they know we are going there, so it was all done.
Did the police do any sort of forensics? Because I imagine that if the investigation was thorough, they would, mark off the beach house, they would fingerprint, they would look for, use luminol to look for blood. Did they do anything like that you know of?
They said they didn't mark off anything. The beach house, they didn't do anything at all. But only thing we know is they are telling us they did everything. They took, fingerprints and DNAs and everything. They did. That's what they are telling us. But they said they didn't find any blood stains or anything there.
Speaking to Shirley and researching this case in general, it appears that there are 2, possibly 3 competing theories for what happened to Reni the night of March 3rd, 2014. The first theory is the theory adopted by police that Reni, high on LSD, ran into the ocean and died. The second is the theory that something bad happened to Reni that night, that he was met with foul play, either intentional or accidental, and his friends, afraid of getting in trouble, covered it up. Regardless which theory is true, Shirley believes that Reni's friends know more than they're letting on about what happened that night. If you could say something to his friends, if his friends were listening to our podcast now, what would you want to tell them?
Please, whatever, a little information where I could find my son. That's all. I don't want to blame anybody. I just want my son back. Doesn't matter how little it is. Just give me the information so I can bring my kid home. That's the only thing I want in my life. It's just the wish, a mother's wish.
So it's been 2 years now, right, since Reni disappeared. Do you know what the current status of the investigation is for the Panama City Police?
They are not doing anything so far. They don't have any new leads. Whenever I call them, they said, we don't have any new leads.
Then there's that third possibility. The possibility that Reni, frustrated by his life, voluntarily went missing. But Shirley dismisses this possibility as not fitting in with the Reni that she knew.
One thing I want to say is that, I could never think him run away or anything, because he wasn't a kid like that. So I couldn't imagine him, something, he just all of a sudden, I just don't want my life. He wasn't like that. So I am thinking there is something happened there. If somebody, at least somebody, just open up and say it, it's just a clue, just something, so I can bring my son home.
Thank you so much, Shirley.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Getting off the phone with Shirley wasn't the end of the story for me. There were far too many unanswered questions about who Reni was and what his life, living almost 2,000 miles away from his parents, was like. I knew that speaking with someone who was with Reni in Panama City was going to be impossible, so I spoke to a friend of Reni's who went to college with him at Rice University, but who wasn't in Panama City. We spoke on the grounds that she would remain anonymous, mostly because the issue of Reni's disappearance amongst his friends at Rice University has been an area of contention ever since that trip in March 2014. Will you tell me the first time that you met him or how you met him?
Little background, Rice is set up in a college system, like Harry Potter kind of. So like every college is student has its own student body government, like whatever. So every college is very like tight knit. I worked at this pub that had a lot of people from Reni's college called Martel. So I became friends with all the bartenders from Martel, and then gradually just became friends with a lot of people at Martel that were within that group of people. So obviously we worked at a pub, we were drinkers and whatever, partiers. So everybody just hung out all the time, got along really well. And so I think I met Reni at the pub. I think literally I served him a beer and that's how we met. But we just had the same group of friends.
And then after you met him at the pub, did you guys just sort of like start hanging out and sort of build a friendship from there?
Yeah, we just like first of all, like he was at pub, all the time. So like anytime I'd be working, he would be there, or like if I just went, he was probably going to be there. And then I hung out at Martell a lot, like on the weekends when I wasn't working. So I would go hang out there. So like, and we had parties all the time and stuff like that. So never were like, we never like hung out like one on one, like just me and Reni. It was just like mostly always in group settings. But then Reni and I definitely had like a special connection. Like it was always platonic. It was never anything romantic or anything. But like we definitely understood each other, like I think on a wavelength a lot of people didn't. So almost anytime we hung out in a group setting, like Reni and I would always like go off and like have a beer or a cigarette and just talk about something else. So
What kind of person was he like? Like, what was he into? What kind of hobbies did he have?
like this sounds bad, but like my group of friends in college, like we drank in our spare time. Like that's what we did. Like we were in college. So honestly, like I can't tell you a single one of my friends' hobbies, like because we didn't have hobbies. Like but Reni he was a mechanical engineering major, and he did a lot of like engineering like competitions or like classes that were very project oriented, stuff like that. So in his like weekend time, he had a lot of late nights where he was like doing a lot of like competitions and like big projects for his classes and stuff. So he was pretty into that. I mean, and he did a lot of drugs, like, and that's something that his mom like will never understand and will never admit. But like Reni, out of everybody I knew, and I knew a lot of people who did drugs, like did the most drugs of anybody I've ever known.
In terms of his school, was he a good student? I mean, it sounds like you guys were partying frequently, but from what I've heard, he was a pretty good student. So it seems like he was able to balance those two.
Yeah, and that's the kind of school that Rice is. Like, Rice is just a school of crazy, crazy geniuses, like mad scientist people. Like, he was one of those people who would be partying all the time and was still like a 4.0 student. And I didn't understand it because he partied on a level that like I never did. And a lot of people, I mean, incredibly smart, very motivated, like always got his shit done.
I wanted to walk through the same set of events that I had with Shirley, with Reni's friend. I wanted to see if some of the strange behavior exhibited by his friends during that trip could be explained from a different perspective. I started with March 3rd, the day Reni's friends claim he was high on LSD and wanted to run off and hurt himself. Then on March 3rd, his friends claim that he started acting strangely and making comments about wanting to run away and hurt himself. So I guess there's two questions that I have in regards to this. One, does this line up with any kind of Reni you've ever experienced in your life? And have you ever known him to use LSD specifically?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Reni did any drug that you could possibly think of, Reni had done. So I think he tended to like shrooms more than acid. Like, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, he told me he didn't like acid. And that I remember now, wow, I haven't thought about this in a really long time, it was so surprising to me. I was like, why the fuck was Reni on acid? Because I know he doesn't like that. So yeah, Reni was on acid when it happened. I have never seen Reni on any like psychedelic drugs. So I don't know if that's typical, and I don't know if I know that there's such thing as a bad trip. I've personally never done psychedelics. So it's really possible he was having a bad trip, but I have a couple of like comments on that in general.
Sure. Yeah.
So first of all, I tried really, really hard to find out what the fuck happened. And I asked people who were on the trip. So I tried really, really, really hard to find out what the timeline was. And people just didn't really talk. Like, I didn't get any answers from anybody. So I never really found out. My pretty much only person who I ever really got to talk about this with was the original private investigator that they've hired, whose name is Mark, I think. And I actually talked to him a lot. And he told me, I don't even know when this was, but I remember saying to him, like, Mark, and this was like probably a year and a half after it happened. I was like, Mark, I'm just trying to figure out like what the timeline was in terms of the drugs. And he was like, Reni was not on drugs when it happened. He said from all of his accounts he got, they had done acid like the night before or something. And acid lasts something like 10 to 20 hours or whatever. So he was like, so unless Reni took more, which is a possibility, he would not have still been on a trip. So that was always Mark's thing, was like, it would be like physically impossible for Reni to drown himself if he were sober, like at 7:00 p.m., when it's still like daylight out in March. So that was always Mark's thing, was like, yeah, there's no way he could have killed himself because he wasn't on drugs.
You said you sort of searched out, like you wanted to know what happened, right? Understandably. Then did you get any sense while you were trying to find out information that like some things weren't adding up, or some people were holding information back, like just an intuitive sense or a gut sense?
I guess not really. I guess what I didn't understand was, why didn't people want to talk about it? Like just in general, like about how fucked up it was, and like how we missed our friend and how it sucked. Because like for me, this was traumatic, and the last thing I want to do is internalize it. Like what I want to do is, drink a bottle of wine with my friends and cry about it. Like, and that's what I pretty much had to do. Like, but with people that weren't even, I had to go to like other friends who weren't a part of it. So that's what to me has always been such a mystery. Like I've never ever suspected any single person. Like I don't even remember who was there and who wasn't there, honestly. So I never suspected anything, but I just didn't understand how people could so quickly and easily say, yeah, Reni killed himself, when he had never exhibited anything of the nature. Like, yeah, like he wasn't the happiest person, and yeah, he abused drugs and alcohol, but like a lot of our friends did that. He never exhibited, it's not like he stood out. Like he wasn't depressed, he wasn't suicidal. So how did people just accept it so easily? I never understood that. And that's, I think, part of the reason why I haven't been able to let go of it. Like, why am I the only person who wanted to talk to his mom, like who wanted to try to figure out what's happening? Like, what do the police know? Like, why am I the only person who's like, why did they never find a body when you look at 99% of the cases that are similar and they find a body within 2 weeks? Why is that not surprising to people? Like, there's just so much about it that frustrates me, and it wasn't ever suspicious. It's just like, I don't think I'm that special, but am I really just that more like empathetic? Like,
did you ask them this?
Oh my God. I've gotten into trouble with my friends. They're like, you need to stop talking about it. And like it happened, I was on vacation with some of my friends like 2 months ago, and I got, drank a little too much and like started talking about it. And like, the next day they're like, you can't talk about this anymore. You have to stop. And I was like, first of all, I haven't talked about this with you guys in literally years because you won't talk about it. And second of all, like, don't you think the fact that I'm still torn up about it, like, doesn't that say, like, yeah, I do need help. Can you guys help me? So that's just what's always been so tough about it.
7 p.m., he's saying erratic things, making claims about wanting to hurt himself, and then he runs off, and it's not until the next morning that his friends report him missing to police. So, do you know why there's this gap in time between when he's acting strangely and suspiciously and when they go to police?
I don't know. Like, if I think about it if I put myself there, everybody's probably been drinking like for 48 hours. There's like 20 people there. Like, if I put myself there, the reason why that was never that suspicious to me is like, they probably all thought Reni had passed out, like, or everybody was wasted and they were passed out and they just didn't notice, and that's why that was never really, like, I can totally see why other people are like, what happened in those 15 hours? Like, I get that. But I'm also like, yeah, like, I was 20 at the time. Like, I did that too. So I don't know. I truly don't know. It was really only like one of my friends who I ever talked about it with, and yeah, he basically just said like nobody noticed because everybody was fucked up.
All right, so then it's the morning of March 4th, and he's finally reported missing. And then I read from one of the articles that about like basically all but 4 of his friends left. Yeah. Before they could even talk to the police. They just left. What do you think is the reasoning for this?
No, like, that is so hard for me to understand. I mean, like, I understand being traumatized and not wanting to be there, but I way, 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 way more understand being traumatized and wanting to, like, solve the fucking problem. Like, I don't get it. I think probably what happened, there was probably a lot of drugs and people didn't want to be arrested, or like, I think people were just scared. I think they were scared. That's all I can think is like, people were just really scared and they panicked and they wanted to go be with each other somewhere that wasn't in this place where their friend just disappeared. Like, that's all I can think of.
Were all the people there, were they all close to graduating?
Almost all of them, yeah, were senior. It was like senior spring.
I mean, the only other thing I could think of in terms of justification is sort of the same thing as the night before, where there's just a lot of drugs, a lot of things going on, and here I am months away from graduating college, and the last thing I want is for me to get in trouble for having illegal drugs when I'm about to graduate from college,
right,
and go into the workforce and have to find a job, and I don't want this on my record. So it's going to be easier for me to just hightail it out of there and deal with it later, or not deal with it at all.
Exactly.
If there's 2 theories, one that he left intentionally and one that he met foul play, then if he left intentionally, why leave behind the objects that are gonna help you get away? And if he met with foul play, why are these items found in a place that's so easy to find them?
I don't know. I've never understood the clothes thing. Like, that's the only thing that makes me think like, yeah, he walked into the ocean, because how do you walk naked away with your clothes and like there's no reports about a naked guy walking down the street?
Right.
Like, the only thing that makes sense to me is like, he truly wanted a fresh start. Like, he didn't want his phone, he didn't want his wallet, like, and he was under the influence of something that just made sense, and he just tossed it and ran. I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, there's not a lot of logic going into that. But
I mean, even the reports that I read online, it's like the police say, okay, he took LSD, he ran into the ocean, and he drowned. But then almost in the same breath, they'll say, but if someone were to do that, bodies like usually show up like 99% of the time, because you can't get that far out into the ocean in order for your body to not be washed back onto shore. So it seems it's weird because they make one claim so strongly, but then follow it up with, well, it's not really possible.
Yeah. Yeah, they totally botched that case. Like they didn't like you said, like they didn't even try to get in touch with people until days later. Like and that's so obvious in all these statements. They're like, "Oh yeah, this definitely happened." But maybe it didn't. Like they don't know. Like they have no idea. So, yeah, like I think they're just it makes sense, yes, that this kid walked into the ocean and killed himself, but it also doesn't make sense.
Then, last December, Reny's mother gets a mysterious phone call, which leads to a series of events that result in a conversation between Shirley and Reny's friend. I'll let her explain.
So there's a little bit of backstory to this. Last December, Mark, the former private investigator, texted me, and he said somebody called Shirley and said, like, I miss you and I want to come home, from a blocked number, and then hung up. And like he texted me that, and I like had like a breakdown, like had to take work off, like it was crazy. And so after that happened, like he was like, we're trying to figure out what happened, like, like please, thinking like no one can be so cruel as to do this as like a prank joke. So from that, like I at some point like thought about it. I had to talk to a lot of people. Like the dean of undergraduates at Rice was like my mentor through this whole process. And he so I had to call him and talk to him, and he basically said, look, if it was Reny calling his mom, you need to think about the possibility that he could try to contact you. Like, just think about it and think about what you would do. So I did that. Like, I thought about it, and I was like, okay. So I wrote a message on Facebook, like, knowing he's probably not monitoring his Facebook account, whatever. But just in case he ever did, like, sent him my number, because obviously, like, he wouldn't have my number. He didn't have his phone or anything. And so that's how she got my number, and she called me. She really just like sounded like she just wanted someone to talk to about it, she got very emotional with me as well, and she was not accusatory, but like she did say a lot of things like, I know if someone's not telling something, like I know my son, he didn't do drugs, he didn't drink. And like I was like, Shirley, like I need you to understand, like, you have a different image of your son than who he was. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I know that's really hard to hear, but, like, I need you to understand that.
It sounded like if she needed somebody to talk to, and you sort of expressed also that need to have somebody to talk to, was that moment more cathartic? Like, did it provide any closure for you? What was your feeling after you got off the phone with her?
I think it was kind of cathartic. Yeah, I think it was, because I don't know really why or what happened, but I have thought about it a lot less since then. Like, I have been able to kind of, which is why when this happened, like this thing with my friends, and like when I started talking about it a couple of months ago, like I don't really know where that came from, but yeah, I think it was probably just finally like being able to talk to somebody who thinks he's alive and out there. I'm the only person who ever has. Other than the dean of undergraduates at Rice.
Who has what?
Who's believed that he didn't kill himself, who thinks he's alive, and being the only person who he said anything to, like that's another part of it.
And what did he say to you?
So like Reni and I definitely had like a connection, and so we would often like kind of go off on a party and just like talk. And more than once, 3 to 5 times, the conversation would like steer towards like our future paths, like what we wanted out of life, family, relationships, whatever. And it would all kind of tie into the same theme of like, is this like worth it? Not like living, but like this path that we've convinced ourselves is the path. Like, is it really worth it? Or should we just drop all that and go and do what we're truly passionate about? And so he explicitly said more than once, wouldn't it be nice to just leave and start over? Like, he explicitly said that. And so that was what was so damaging to me afterward, was like, oh my God, like he said that. Like he definitely thought about, like, he didn't want to be a mechanical engineer. Like he was a very like philosophical person. Like he was, like he wanted to explore life. Like what he wanted to do. Like he did not want to go into this traditional graduate, get a job, move to the big city, get an apartment type of thing. Like that is not what he wanted. And he made that really clear to me, and probably to other people too, but I don't think, as far as I could tell, he never gave any indication to other people that like he legitimately thought about starting a new life and actually like not going down this cookie cutter, cog in the machine path that he felt very pressured to be a part of. And so, yeah, so that's why I never believed he was dead.
So when you look back on those conversations, then did it ever cross your mind at those times that this is serious, or did it seem more like, oh, this is fantasy, wouldn't it be nice? But, there's no real way I'm going to do this.
Yeah, no, I never thought it would be serious. I mean, I did think it was realistic. Like, it's not to say like I didn't think, oh, maybe he'll do this, but I was like, if he did it, it would be like a conscious, like, external decision that, he would tell like, okay, you guys, I'm taking a gap year and I'm going to go whatever, travel the world. Like, I was like, maybe he could really do that. And that's what I thought about. Like, no, I never thought, like, he never said it in such a way that it was concerning. It was introspective. Like, it wasn't like laughing about it. Like, it was introspective. So I took it seriously, and that's why I felt so guilty afterward, because I know he believed that. So, and I believed him when he said it. I just didn't think it would, how can you ever expect somebody to just walk off? Like, it's such a betrayal. Like, I would never expect that from somebody.
I've dealt with a few of these cases where the police just think, that they did just walk off, right? And that was their choice. But then when I actually think about it logistically, and I think about what it would mean to leave your life and start a new life, unless you were like mentally not in a right state of mind, it doesn't seem like in this day and age where we're so connected technologically that would even be possible. Like, how do you stay off the radar just from a logistic point of view? Like, how do you get a job? How do you open a bank account? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I totally, yeah. The only response I have is they found like some like journal left behind that he had been writing in. Like, I don't know if it was just like him writing while he was on his acid trip, or if it was like, I don't know, but they found like mention of him talking about like going to Tibet and becoming a monk or something. So like, it's not like he wanted to walk off and like go move to a small town and be a person. It was like he wanted to walk off and be gone and like not even be here. But then that also begs the question, like, how would he get a plane ticket? Like, how would he get somewhere? Like, he didn't have his passport, it's stuff like that. So it's like, when I think about him leaving, like, yeah, no, he's probably not in Tibet. But if he did leave, he probably lives in a cabin in the woods in Montana, like, that's what I think. Like, I don't know, like, I don't think he would not have like walked off and left to just be a small person, like living a small town life. Like, he would be gone.
So if Reni is out there in a cabin in the woods in Montana or wherever he is, and he were to come across this or to listen to this, what would you want to tell him?
I don't think I'd really want to tell him anything. I mean, I know that sounds bad, but like, and I love him and I care about him. And like, if he's out there, like, I want the absolute best for him, but I'm also really pissed. I'm really mad. I'm upset if he did do that, if he really did it. And that's like, I feel like not the response like a lot of people would like want someone that they love and care about to hear. So I don't know if I really want him to hear that, but like, I guess this is what I would want him to know. Like, I want you to come home, but you really, really hurt me.
Yeah, and I mean, and a lot of people too, right? Like,
And a lot of people, and it wasn't fair. And I know that's like, like to people who have committed suicide, people say it was such a selfish decision, and like, but like, he hurt a lot of people, but like, particularly, like, I don't want to single myself out, but like, he said those things to me. And then if he just walked off, like, he had to go back and think about that. So yeah, I mean, if he's out there, like, here's the thing, like, if Reny's out there, like, he is a really, really, really smart, really resourceful person. Like, I don't think would be found.
you've sort of talked about this at a few different points, but I want to ask you explicitly, how has Reny's disappearance like affected you and your life like 2 years later? How is it still sort of finding ways into your everyday life?
I mean, it changed, like, it literally changed, I think, the course of my life. Like, I was in a long-term relationship. Like, that relationship ended because I was traumatized and I couldn't be in a relationship. Like, I very nearly lost some friendships over it because I like dealt with it the wrong way. Like, I damaged friendships over it. I had a real lack of motivation, so I finished college like my senior year, like horrible, like not horrible grades, but for myself, for my high standards, like bad grades, like definitely affected my motivation in like getting a job and like becoming a real person. I mean, I am now, and I'm, relatively fine now, but for sure, I mean, I really think it changed like the trajectory of my life. Like, that relationship, like, I very well could have stayed and graduated and gone and moved to be where that person is, but like now, so it changed my life. Like, and that's why I feel so, I have so many, like, I want to know, and I want to know what happened, and then I want to be done with it. And I never want to think about it again.
Despite the fact that Reny's mom and friend may have two different pictures of what kind of person he was, doesn't change the fact that they both want the same thing: to find out what really happened to Reny Jose. And all that extra stuff, whether or not he used drugs, whether or not he was happy with his life, whether or not his friends seemed suspicious, doesn't really matter when it comes down to it, because none of that changes the fact that he's still missing and that he could still be out there somewhere. If you have any information about what happened to Reny Jose, please contact the Panama City Police or visit our website at thinairpodcast.com for our contact information, and we can pass it along anonymously. I want to thank both Shirley Jose and Reny's friend for speaking to me about him. For more information about Reny, including pictures, please visit our website for show notes. The website again is thinairpodcast.com. We also want to thank a dear friend of ours for supplying some of the music for today's show, as well as Chris Zabriskie, whose music has been featured in a number of our episodes. His music can be found on his website at chriszabriskie.com, or links can also be found on our website. Lastly, this show is largely supported by listeners like you. If you like what we do and you want to support our podcast, please visit our website for links to our Patreon page, as well as our PayPal one-time donation link. Any amount you can pledge per month makes a huge difference in our ability to keep creating this show. Thank you to all of those who have donated so far, and to those of you who plan to in the future.